Oh, hold on.
Hello, everyone. And finally, we're here for another episode of the Stop Being Invisible podcast. Thank you for being with us and for waiting for this new episode. Unfortunately, Dr. Lane's been a little bit sick lately, so I decided to record anyway. And I brought my dear friend, Lisa. She's here with us. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the
Hello.
podcast.
Thank you. Yep.
And she is here with me today because we actually became friends talking about a couple of things that really we are really passionate about. One, which is special education and people with special needs and their families and their communities, and rescue. Those of us who know me, they know I'm really into cat rescue. But for those of you who have been listening to me here, you know that I'm super, super passionate about special education, and it's been has been my life work from day one. I think since I was a child. So Lisa is here with me today to talk a little bit about her career and her new adventure.
Yes, it's a very big adventure.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah, 25 years in education, um, 15 years in special education, and my doctorate is supervision and leadership, specializing in education. And it has been a full spectrum of me of teaching in elementary schools, teaching in high schools, being on the college level at times, and just really witnessing with my parents their journey from getting their kids early intervention to them transitioning to either the workforce and or to college. So I have a different perspective on things because I have seen it in both directions.
Right.
And I really am passionate now because I'm finding that a lot of parents are at the point in their lives and their children's lives where they're trying to get them employment, and there's just hardly any employment opportunities for them.
Yeah.
And specifically with autism on the rise, as everybody knows it is, that is considered a disability. And I find that people shy away because they think differently, or, they don't uh, act quote unquote normal, and they lose out on amazing job opportunities. And these small businesses and large businesses lose out on these amazing employees.
Right.
So my platform has a lot to
Which,
do
by
with
the way, let's tell people.
uh, so I'm running for town board, town council in the town of North Hempstead. I'm running for District 3,
In New
which
York.
in
Mhm.
New York, which incorporates East Williston, Williston Park, Mineola, New Hyde Park, Garden City Park, and Floral Park. So though, people may think it's a small geographical area, we are quite a dense population. And, we have so many wonderful school districts within that district. So this is one of the things that I have become very passionate about.
Right. And we have talked about this in the past in the podcast where we talk a lot about, we concentrate on school age children because we talk a lot about special education law
Mhm.
and parental rights. We inform parents as to what their rights are, what the process is like.
Mhm.
We guide them through this process. However, we have touched upon this several different times. And when we say we want to invest in our children's education, we want to make sure that our children get what they deserve.
Right.
There is a reason for that. And the reason is we want to make sure that when they leave school, they're employable and employed,
Right.
right? And we have been having a lot of trouble in this particular area. This has
Mhm.
been an issue since the enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we just celebrated if I'm not mistaken, 35 years of the
Yeah.
Americans with Disabilities Act this past July. Still 35 years and a lot of work to still be done.
Hmm.
And my friend Lisa here, she wants to make sure that as an elected official, she will try to like carry out the dreams of what was written in the law, right? When when the ink was dry on that law, and after it was signed, that's only when the work began, right? Didn't mean that yes, I remember President Bush saying, with the stroke of a pen, all Americans will be equal. And it's true. Legally, we are all equal. However, that was step number one.
Right.
We have so many more steps, in front of us. And so Lisa's trying to make sure that this is carried out, and it's carried out at a local level. And I always believe, that politics is always local, and we don't get political here in this podcast unless, of course, we want to talk about our issues, the issues that are of interest to us, and many different issues that really touch upon our lives. We talked about this with Dr. Lane. We talked about Medicaid being a huge issue for people with disabilities. I know when you think Medicaid, you think health, but really it's a huge, huge issue for people with disabilities. Equity and inclusion programs, huge for people with disabilities. So we're not just talking about certain group of people. We are talking about a lot of different people that we
Right.
are sometimes not aware of. So that's when we bring politics into the fold, right? Because we need to be aware, and we need to know what we're talking about, what we're voting for, what we support.
Right.
So, I
Right.
mean, Lisa, if you want to tell people a little bit about your platform.
So the issue at hand is that in this area we have a lot of issues with small businesses closing down. And of course, there's rising costs that come to these issues. There's the rent that comes to this issue. But by and large, they're not finding the workforce to help them maintain their small businesses. A lot of business owners who spoke to me about people using their business as a short-term employment, and they don't really see themselves doing that down the line. Whereas, in my educational career, people that I knew that had disabilities, when they went into the workforce, they stayed in the workforce. They stayed in that workforce. I know people who have retired before me in the workforce, people with disabilities. They're just such an untapped
Mhm.
resource. And then thinking about our small businesses, and then thinking about the students with disabilities and how we don't have anything to connect them together. I was like, this is such a missed opportunity. And we as government can help this process, therefore helping our constituents with disabilities and our small business owners. And really what it comes down to is, having the both parties informed of what is out there, what can they do as a career, what could they do going forward, and for the employers to understand, what their workforce is going to look like. Because I have to say, in 9 times out of 10, when they have hired somebody with a disability, or, their workforce is integrated like that, their workforce becomes beloved through the community. And, it enriches their business so much. And it's not just, yes, that we have a lot of great restaurants, we have a lot of great stores and things like that, but really the word of mouth. If one person says one thing, they usually say it to at least 10 people. Oh, I was at that store, a wonderful young man, helped me with my needs. He was very articulate. And we're not really thinking that way. A lot of people in government right now, they're thinking more profits, and they're not thinking that, profits really come with investments. And
Right.
this is not a costly investment. And it's not even a costly investment for the town because there are so many educators that want to help transition their students, that want, these kind of programs that can help. And as somebody who worked in New York City, I've seen the process work. And, as 25 years later, I have those students and they're my friends on LinkedIn, they're my friends on Facebook, so I
That's
still keep in
wonderful.
touch with them.
Mm.
Um, but just seeing how successful they are, and success is measured differently for everybody, but for these individuals, they give back to the community. They're involved in their communities. They're involved in their cultures. They're involved with their families. A lot of them are great resources for their parents as well.
And they're
And
taxpayers, right?
that's what I was just going to say. And they're taxpayers. They are taxpayers. And it it's amazing that it's just such an untapped resource for everybody. And
Yes.
we just have to, I say inform, educate. I don't mean formal education. You don't have to be a special education teacher to understand this. Um, my sister used to donate her time with our school,
Mhm.
and she used to teach the disabled. And people have told me such fond stories of working at Camp Anchor, and really feeling a part of the team and contributing to that community. I mean, it's just so unbelievable, and the percentages are just wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I will read some of those for people to understand where we stand with this issue. In 2024, which wasn't really a bad year, um, the proportion of the population that was employed with disabilities, 22.7. In contrast, people without a disability, 65.5. So the contrast is huge. And as you said, this is an untapped resource. I also want to like capitalize on something that you said. You don't need to be an expert to train someone with a disability. I know firsthand, as you do. Um, I worked with this woman who actually was the mother of an adult with disabilities. She was very concerned about this issue about, what happens with my son after he graduates from high school.
Mhm.
He has mild intellectual disability, but he is very independent, can do a lot of things for himself, and can actually hold a job. But
Mhm.
she felt nobody was giving him the opportunity that he deserved, right? So,
Absolutely.
because she was a chef, she
Right.
trained him. Not
Hmm.
only did she train him, she formed a group of like neighbors, people in the area who knew somebody with a disability. They sent their adult children there. It's a group of like 15, 20 young adults from the area. And they all learn to cook, to serve tables. So sometimes they go to parties
Yeah.
and they're the servers.
Yeah.
They're like it's a group of people, and then sometimes they get hired. Sometimes they get hired for takeout menus, like takeout dinner. So
Mhm.
they'll prepare the dinner for people. But it's this mom.
Right.
She was not trained in special education at all. She was just a
Right.
mom, and she saw what the issue was with her own son. She
Right.
wanted to make sure that other people had access to this, and she trained them on this. And so, I'm thinking of a lot of restaurants in our area, right? Um, that are hurting for people.
Yeah.
Supermarkets, delis, you name
Yeah.
it. There are so
Yeah.
many places that I can see an adult with disabilities, taking part of.
Absolutely.
Um,
And they're not
so-
getting the opportunity, and they're not getting past the first interview because
right.
people don't understand their nuances. I was just, discussing. I have a new family member just diagnosed with autism,
Mm,
and I encourage I go, this, I'm going to say she just thinks differently. She's just wired differently. She's highly intelligent. She scored very well on her IQ test. And, parents are so worried about their children, and their children are different, and we have to get rid of normal, right? What's normal? Like when I was
Exactly.
growing up, everybody else was normal because I was the daughter of an immigrant and I had a single mom, so I
Mhm.
wasn't normal. And my grandparents didn't speak English, and my neighbors, they were normal. They had a mom and a dad and they lived in normalcy. Well, growing up, now I realize they weren't normal either.
Right.
There is no normal. And, we really should be open to these individuals working in these capacities. And, as I said, 9 times out of 10, you fall in love
Yeah.
because they have amazing personalities and they're raised by people who love them beyond what anybody can ever imagine. These parents fight for their children throughout their educational careers. And then when they get into adulthood, it's heartbreaking that society won't open up space for them.
Yeah.
And, I know so many parents that are just that they're fearful that somebody's going to mock their kid's going to feel bad. And that's a valid fear. But we could really create an environment where that is no longer
It's on
acceptable.
us.
It's no
It's
longer
on us. Yes.
acceptable. And, and we show our love and our appreciation of these individuals because, I never worked a day in my life when I worked with special education.
Yeah.
I had the career that I loved. I had the parents that I loved, and I had difficult parents, trust me. But the one thing about them is they're always fighting for their children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just have to respect that.
Yeah.
And our society really needs to open this up, and small businesses
And be
really
more like
need
those
to open.
parents. Fight for these individuals. Be more like those parents.
Yep.
Really fight for these individuals. I this podcast is called Stop Being Invisible for a reason, right?
Right.
We want our kids, our neighbors to stop being invisible. These are our neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I wanted to say, like we all have neighbors with disabilities. If we think we don't have them, we're not looking.
Yeah.
We are not looking hard enough. But we all do. We all have neighbors with disabilities. So for me, having someone like you, Lisa, that's going to be fighting for my neighborhood, for my neighbors with disabilities, to
Right.
be able to have a job in their community,
Hmm.
that's amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
So we have to wrap it up, but I would love to leave, our listeners, our viewers with a message. If you had to tell them something in terms of what we just talked about, like one message, what would you say to them?
Honestly, we need to be better advocates. We need to be better advocates not only for ourselves, but we need to be better advocates for those around us. And maybe go to a small business and say, oh, you have that help wanted sign out in your window for months now. Did you ever consider doing this? Did you ever consider hiring a student or an adult with disabilities? You know, why not? Oh, well, there are programs out there that can help you. And there are programs with New York State, there were coaches. We have all of that. We have the infrastructure for it. We just don't have the openings, and that's what we need. So I really, I would say be an advocate, be
Be
an
an
advocate,
advocate.
be an
I
advocate.
love it. Be an advocate. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa,
Thank
for
you so
being with
much for
us.
having me. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
everyone, for listening. And remember, I love that message. Be an advocate. Be an
Yep,
advocate for your friends, your family, and your neighbors.
yep,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye
wonderful day,
bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye bye.